I just missed that.
Does your child have a serious medical condition, such as cerebral palsy?
And his newborn.
Hey, what's going on, guys?
Just, doing a show, talking to people.
Nice. I'm not here to debate with you. You guys are way above me with a lot of stuff, so I'm not even going to try to say I'm right, I'm wrong. I just wanted to get an opinion, I guess, from you, from my own experience of why I think there could be a higher power, let's call it that.
Man, that is about as vague as anybody's ever started with. Why there could be a higher power. Cool.
Well, I like to go out in the woods a lot, man, and I just kind of relax out there. And, I might smoke a joint or something like that. Crucify me.
Are you asking me out on a date? Because I'll say yes. Let's go out in the woods and smoke a joint. Yeah.
I use photographs. I have painted without a photograph before, just like sitting outside looking at nature. I painted a lake one time, and I painted a river, and I've done some of my own like characters out of my imagination that I just drew out and painted. But those are like, I did that a long time ago. Like now, all of my paintings come from photograph references.
Yeah, okay.
One time I was up there, there were some waterfalls there, and we got there's waterfalls, and it's a big fall that goes down into a little pond, and then it goes off into another little pond, and it goes off to a stream, to another waterfall. So I'm sitting there, I just smoked a little bit, and I'm kind of just watching everything, and I seen a fox come out and get some water. Now there was a squirrel there before. I was watching the squirrel. And then the fox came out across the pond, and all of a sudden that squirrel just took off up the tree quicker than you can blink an eye. And I'm thinking, man, that fox could kill that squirrel, no problem. But nature gave the ability to that squirrel to climb up that tree quicker than you can blink an eye, and it was gone. The fox can't get him. And it seems like in nature everything has an ability, like a different ability to survive, whether it's big or small. It has its own ability to defend itself. And
you know why?
So
natural selection.
Go ahead, Matt.
Because the squirrels that couldn't outrun the foxes died and didn't have offspring, so you're looking at the offspring of the squirrels that did have the ability to get away from foxes.
Right. The evolution. I agree with you 100%.
Cool.
I was thinking, why, everything that got put into motion, that maybe there's a possibility that there's something out there that kind of got everything in motion, and maybe, what it is, I don't know. Maybe it just sits back and lets everything just take its natural course. Maybe I'm thinking that maybe, something, all right, let me put this pot together and throw that in it and just let it work and let it go. And
So this thing that maybe got everything started and maybe sits back and watches it, what do you think we could say about that thing? What can we know about that thing?
Not too darn much. I mean, it's almost like it's sleeping. Like it's just not. almost like it just created it, and either lets everything go the way it's supposed to, or
maybe it's not even a thinking thing. Maybe it's an entirely natural process, because we can't know whether or not what you're talking about has any sort of agency or ability to do things. And if you and I are in agreement, and I won't even say that I think you're wrong about anything you said. The point where I think we might have gone wrong is when we say there's something behind this and we can't know anything about it, but I'm going to view it as if it's a thinking agent, higher power, godlike being, because that'd be a mistake. Right. That'd be the same thing as if it's the reason why thunderbolts and lightning gets credited to Zeus and stuff.
Right.
When he said something started it all, well, this is a variation. I'm paraphrasing. Something started all this in motion. And I'm like, yeah, we agree. Yep, something started it.
And the problem is that our ability to investigate this is incredibly limited, because everything, if you go back using, for example, Big Bang cosmology, there's a point at which you can't go back further in time, and there's the notion that time began to exist then. Plus, we have exactly one universe and no time machines. And so everything that we learn about the origins of the universe, the diversity of life, the process by which stars create an accretion disk that then gravity begins to manipulate in order to form planets, etc.
Oh, damn. I didn't mean to do that.
Medical negligence when treating a heart
Beaver.
Partially from observation, but quite a bit from inference. And the nice thing is that as we look farther and farther out in space, we are able to look further and further back in time. And so, I've toured with physicists who give great lectures on all of this stuff. It's not that, as an atheist, I'm not saying necessarily there is no God, and I'm not even saying there's not a possibility of a God. All I'm saying is I haven't been convinced that there is a God or that it's possible that a God exists. And the burden of proof is on, of course, the people who are saying that those things are true.
I'm reminded of Douglas Adams. Was it his analogy when he was talking about human beings are like the water in a pothole, or that say, wow, this
the puddle of water.
It's formed perfectly just for me, right? Yep. And they were just sort of reverse the streams, and you just decide that maybe you were sort of the end all. He didn't necessarily go there in the call, but that's usually part of the prime mover, intelligent designer, watchmaker argument.
Well, it's kind of where he started when he's talking about the capabilities of the squirrel being able to get away from the fox, that there appears to be the hallmarks of design.
But what about the seal that can't escape the what about whenever we get into, wow, everything just seems so manufactured so that one thing plays well into the other. This is often under the intelligent design or ID. Our sun gives us cancer. Someone explain that design to me. We've got blind.
Our sun doesn't give everyone cancer. So, speak for yourself, homie. Because most black people can't get melanoma from sun. So that is something weird.
Creatures with eyes. Our sun gives us cancer. Someone explain that design to me. We've got blind creatures with eyes. We've got deaf creatures with ears. We've got flightless birds with wings. We've got heavy bones in flying animals. We've got pelvises in whales. We've got redundant RNA. We've got wisdom teeth. We've got men with nipples. Someone explain this to me. Someone explain the design. But it makes sense. Please never do that again. Please. Honestly, and so I appreciate the complexity often plays into this. I was guilty when I was a believer of saying it's all so complex. But, as many engineers will tell you, actually some of the best designs are not the most complex. They're the most streamlined. They're actually the least messy, the least complex.
Yeah, I think an example that Dawkins was fond of using was the laryngeal nerve on a giraffe, which absolutely confirms giraffe evolution and the expansion of the neck, because it goes all the way down and wraps around and comes all the way back up. And nobody would design it that way unless you were reusing old parts and then going out. And why would God or any being capable of doing all this be forced to? And then what we'll get sometimes is, well, evolution's real and it's just that God started it off or God intervened. And I'm like, okay, how do you prove that? But because there were several callers in the last week that talked about the appearance of design, and one of them repeatedly tried to quote Dawkins as referring to the appearance of design. And of course, he did say that. And I released a video on my Atheist Debates Patreon thing last week, or 2 weeks ago. No, it was last week, about the appearance of design. And if you don't want to go watch the whole thing, here's the short version. The second somebody says appearance from design, they're not talking about design, because if we could confirm that it was designed, we would just call it design. When you say that something has the appearance of something, you're saying this seems like it might be that. Like when I'm on stage, I give the appearance of being able to read minds. I get the appearance of being able to make things float or change places. I'm not actually doing that. And anybody who said, Matt is a wizard and can do so, those people are mistaken. But as soon as they say Matt can give the appearance of being a wizard, you are correct, sir.
Let me jump in with one more practical question. Is it Frank? Is that right? My screen went out, so I can't release it.
Yes, Frank. Yep.
Let's say that there was a watchmaker, right? Some agency set the universe in motion, but then remained completely uninvolved in the rest of everything. Then why bother? Like, what difference does it make to our lives? We're still, even if we believed in that watchmaker, we're still living in a natural, uncaring world that functions with physical, natural laws that can be measured and repeated and tested and those types of things. For our practical purposes, there's no God involved in any of that. There's no higher power involved in any of our lives. It completely, it does not affect us really in any palpable way, right? Would you agree that, if we think that something started it all and then went on walkabout, really we're on our own regardless, right?
Right, we're on our own. That's what it seems like. Can I ask one more thing?
Absolutely.
What do you guys feel about the Sumerian legends? The ancient Sumerians and with their kind of beliefs there, that we were. Sometimes I think maybe we're just really fancy, top of the line androids. Maybe maybe we were created. Sometimes I think maybe we're like a robot creation.
So let me dig in on this for a second, because I laughed, and it wasn't your fault at all. Because when you asked, what do you think of the Sumerian legends, I was reminded of a week or two ago when somebody called in to ask what I thought of Native American legends, and when I pointed out that I don't believe them either, and all human beings make up stuff, it was suggested that I was racist. So I'm glad there's probably no Sumerians actually listening at the moment, because I don't believe their legends either. I think this is what humans do. When we don't have enough information, we make up the stories, and when the stories are popular, when they seem to give us an answer, it eases our frustration with not knowing the answer. And that's why, in part, in a small way, you were calling to do something very similar to those types of legends. You weren't saying, oh, there's a God and I'm convinced. You're talking about the possibility of it and how you see the sort of things that might lead you down that path. And you're constructing essentially a modern narrative version of that may be more scientific. And I look at all of it. I look at all of it and say the time to believe it is after we actually have evidence for it. And if you're just like, nope, if I were to just say, nope, you're wrong, that's cynicism. But saying I'm not convinced you're right is an application of skepticism, and those are different. But yeah, I'm not. I don't. you'd have to define robots and everything else, because I'm pretty sure we could cut me open and we're not going to find, like, nuts and bolts.
Let's not do that.
Oh, come on.
Yeah, no,
it's a special show.
Every time we talk about the Sumerians, I'm always, because obviously we're talking about a civilization that predates young Earth creationism by like 5,000 years or whatever. And I'm reminded of, I think it was an Onion headline that said, "Ancient Sumerians invent God." And I thought, that's pretty much it, right? I mean,
they certainly invented some.
They had technology. They were using technology before Christianity says their Adam and Eve even existed.
That's all right, because just the other day I found out that during the Revolutionary War, those heroes came in and took out the airports first.
The British Airways are coming. The British Airways are coming. Yeah, I've seen all those memes online. They're awesome.
Anyway, is that
the church thing? Oh, I'm sorry.
No, I just want to know if that was a satisfactory answer, because I've got some more.
Oh, that was great. It was a great answer. I want to thank you. Yeah, I mean, you guys are very, very knowledgeable, man.
Thank you, Frank.
It seems like the church and the religions got what they wanted: power and control, and they seem to have done it. And and then, I don't know what could ever stop the rain. I don't know.
I think it's up to us to undo it.
I'm going to let you go, Frank, and Seth and I are going to talk about this a little bit off air, but we appreciate it.
If you live in the Hazleton area
and you are tired of settling.
I might have to take a break for something to eat. I'm getting hungry as hell sitting there right now.
Okay. Who would we like first? We go with John?
Sure.
John in San Antonio says that you believe there's a lot of truth deep truth in the Bible despite human error. So thanks for calling. You're on with Matt and Don.
Yeah. Hey, what's up? It's me, John. Yeah, I just heard y'all talking, and I feel like, what is it called? Atheists have like a personal, what is it called, grudge against God or something.
I don't have a personal grudge against God, because I don't think God exists or is a person. I have what I don't like is when irrational and harmful beliefs are accepted by a good chunk of the population without good reason.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I was calling because I was just saying basically that I don't think the Bible. I mean, I don't agree I don't like how y'all ignore the fact that science, politics, and religion are very good tools of indoctrination and manipulation, but you're only focusing on the religious part of things, and you.
Well, this is an atheism show, right?
Yeah, but that's my whole point.
The other thing is that while you can be indoctrinated into any position, science is not an indoctrination process. And while politics
science isn't a religion.
No, science is not a religion, nor is it an indoctrination process.
It's funny. So you're telling me, okay? Hey, well, that's your belief. I don't want to argue about it.
Well, then you shouldn't have called the show.
Yeah. Hey, no, because I was just calling to say that there is truth in the Bible, and that.
So what? There's truth in it. There's truth in a Spider-Man comic too. To just call and say that there's something true in the Bible is.
It's easy to focus on all the things that is wrong, but what is right about it? It's easy.
It doesn't matter what's right about it, because what's right about the Bible, what's right about the Bible and true is irrelevant to whether or not the foundations of the Bible are true. So the Bible can say good things like sell your belongings, give the money to the poor. But that doesn't mean that message has come from a God, or that book has anything to tell us about what a God is or what a God wants or anything else. So the things that you could point to that are true in the Bible are trivial, and they exist outside of the Bible. So it's not like you needed the Bible to find those things that are true.
And if it's written by God, shouldn't it all be true?
That's one thing I always argue with people that are religious, is that God is not just within the Bible, God is everywhere. And
I would argue that God is not necessarily in the Bible and apparently nowhere.
Yeah.
So prove
believe that.
No, it's not belief. No. Stop, John. I don't choose to. You keep doing this defensive thing of pretend. Shut up. You keep doing this defensive thing of pretending you understand what I think and then demonstrating that you actually don't.
You said you don't believe in God. You said God's not real, so that's a belief.
No.
You don't know that. You believe it.
Saying
you can't prove.
Oh my God! Are you going to stop?
I'm done.
saying I do not believe in God, but I'm willing for you to demonstrate evidence for the God you believe in. That's my position.
God reveals himself to you. God reveals himself to us every day, but it's to see it or not.
Prove it.
Prove to me that red is real. Unless you experience it, you'll never know it.
Okay.
If I'm blind, you can never tell me with words what red is.
You are flat wrong in that.
How would you explain red to me?
If you'd stop fucking interrupting me and let me finish my sentence, I'd tell you. Do you think that people who are colorblind cannot be shown that they are in fact colorblind?
I didn't say that they're aware of the fact that they're colorblind. I said they can't experience the color red. With words, you cannot.
Oh my God.
The experience of red. I didn't say that they're not aware of the fact that they're colorblind.
I'm not fucking finished. I'm not finished. You would learn something if you would just let me finish.
All right, I'm done. I'm sorry. I'm not going to talk about it.
Let's say Don is colorblind and he can't tell the difference between red and green. He will never know what it's like to see red in the same way that I do. But it may be the case that nobody will ever know what it's like to see red in the way that I do. However, I can demonstrate conclusively to Don that there is a red and that there is a green and that people can in fact do discern this, and that there is technology that can discern this in addition to just human senses. Correct?
Oh wait, I want to rephrase.
That's a question.
I'm going to rephrase.
No, you're not. No, you're not.
Too long.
Don't get
no, you're not. This is a simple question.
Can you simplify it again a little with like less than a whole?
Don's colorblind, but I can demonstrate conclusively to him that red and green are actual things that he cannot distinguish between.
How would you demonstrate that to me if I was blind? Because you're saying colorblind. I'm talking about somebody being blind, not able to see anything.
Goodbye. See, here's the thing. You have to do things in little bitty steps, and the second your brain recognizes that we've taken the first steps towards showing the second step and third step, which will show how absolutely asinine your position is, you go into defensive mode and spin things around. So I'll do this for you. If someone happens to be red and green colorblind, they can't distinguish between red and green. We now understand the various causes for this, including defects within the eye as well. And if somebody is in fact red and green colorblind, I can demonstrate to them the truth that red exists and green exists, or that these are colors that other people can perceive. And we can do this both with human eyes in double-blind experiments to hold up cards. Hey, is this red? Is this green? Is this red? Is this green? And show that people who can distinguish between red and green can get a 100% success rate in identifying and distinguishing between the two, even if Don can't. That's how I can demonstrate that red and green are there. If someone is totally blind, that still applies to them, because they are now able to discern that someone can tell the difference between two things that they can't see at all. It's even more powerful to a blind person that, oh my gosh, not only can you people see and demonstrate that you can see through a test, but there are variations in things that I can't even comprehend because I can't see them. Your narrow view of the world, that there would be no way to explain to someone who is incapable of seeing that other people can see, is so monumentally stupid that it's embarrassing that we have to address it. Because we live in a world where for the entire history of human beings, we have had people who do not have sight, and we've dealt with it. And all of them have accepted that they can't see, and yet someone else can. It is a fairly trivial exercise to demonstrate this. And the fact that you want to go to that because your argument is, well, I've experienced God and you won't ever believe me until you experience God. Well, congratulations. If that's true, if the key is that you have done some experiment that proves God to you and I haven't, well, you may in fact be warranted. But until you demonstrate that to the rest of us who are blind, you're not. And it is just fundamentally, logically identical to, I am convinced I experienced this. I can't prove it to any of you, but I'm fucking right.
And how do we distinguish that from a delusion?
Yeah. Oh, well, you can't teach a blind person this. Yes, you can. All kinds of stuff. People without sight are just as brilliant and able to understand these things as most anybody else other than you who call. It's frustrating because I know the path that he's going down. I've experienced God. I understand you haven't. So I'm not going to hold that against you, that you don't believe in God. God just hasn't deigned to demonstrate to you. Now, if you change those things, I can see things. I know that you can't. I'm sorry that nature has prevented you from seeing things, but you're just going to have to take my word for it that I can see things. Do you see the difference in the experimental process there? One is faith-based, bias, bald-ass assertion, and the other one is science, which isn't a fucking religion and isn't about indoctrination. It's a test methodology that removes those biases and removes the baggage that you are carrying around.
Okay.
Do you love debates on religion and atheism? Well, at our channel, Modern Day Debate, we sure do. And we strive to have...
Right, so we're moving on to Alex, who is in Dallas, Texas. Hi, Alex. You're on with Tracy and John, and it says here you want to talk about potential harm caused by atheism.
Hi, Alex.
Hey.
Yeah. Hi. Can you hear me? First of all.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. I was just listening to this guy was going off.
I think the Skull and Bones reference, it was like, what's next? The Illuminati and the Federal Reserve speech or something. I'm just like, I don't have time for this. So, yeah, go ahead.
I called like a couple weeks ago. I apologized. I went back and I watched the video and I realized that I was very nervous and I started and I didn't really get to have the discussion I wanted, so I wanted to call back. Okay. Just thinking about what my argument was, just write down some stuff. I'm back. So the first thing I wanted to address was I know it's really, really hard for I think atheists to believe that I used to be an atheist.
Actually, every believer used to be an atheist, so I think that we do believe you.
Wait, what does that mean? Like, what do you mean that every believer used to be an atheist?
Did you believe in God when you were born?
I mean, sure. I guess, yeah. I mean, so obviously you believe in God because I used to be religious. Obviously, you're religious like a little kid is religious, right? Like, parents tell you that, hey, God exists, and you're like, okay.
Well, I guess what I'm saying is most Christian religions have this idea that at a certain point you sort of profess your belief, right? You say like, oh, I believe. And so up until that point, you're not really in that camp. So it's when you actually understand it, when you can believe it, that's when you would become a believer. But up to then, you probably wouldn't be a believer. So I do believe you that you were an atheist and that you became a believer.
Sure, yeah. Yeah. Okay, so yeah, I'm Hindu, right?
That's fine.
And so obviously, I mean, I was atheist in the sense, like, I used to watch Bill Maher and, like, Sam Harris was, like, I loved watching the videos, how he took down people and stuff like that. And obviously, when I am a believer, I obviously have a very clockmaker belief in God, like the clockmaker theory. You're familiar with that, right?
Yeah, so you believe you're, like, a creationist.
Wait, no, I'm not creating. God pushed, like, time's arrow. God created science and physics and math and all that stuff. Like, that's the kind of thing. Like, God.
Right, but the watchmaker is basically saying that it's designed, that some intelligence designed the universe, right?
Okay.
That's creationism, isn't it?
Okay, I guess. That's not what I don't believe it's design. I think, it's.
Well, that's the watchmaker argument.
Okay.
Unless he's talking about something else.
Well,
clockmaker.
I'm trying to understand, like, Hindus believe in something called the Brahman, which is, like, it's the everything. It's the all reality, all consciousness, all knowing. Like, it's the culmination of I don't know how to just put this into words, and I think that's why we have a word for it. But it's like a culmination of science, of life. I don't know.
So atheism is harmful because.
Okay, yeah. So let's go into that. The reason why I think so, we talked about politics in the last time when I was here, and I asked you what you guys believed in. I know Tracy wasn't a fan of capitalism. I don't know what John believes in. If John is a fan of capitalism or not. What I wanted to say, this is often misquoted. There's this Karl Marx quote on religion is that it's an opium of the people, meaning that it's a harmful thing. But he believes in capitalist societies where people live disillusioned lives
religion can be that opium, a sort of medicated concept to help them when they are exploited workers, when they suffer worker alienation, when they are paid low jobs, live low standards, live their day paycheck to paycheck. So like a question I have for atheists, often it sounds very, very absurd, which is why don't you just kill yourself? It's like there's no God, right? And I know it sounds absurd, but like that's a genuine question I have is like why do you, like, there's no obligation for any of us to be here.
Do you think, for example, that a dog believes in a god, that the gods are dogs are theistic? Do you have any reason to think that's true?
No.
Okay. Do dogs value their lives?
Wait, what?
Do dogs value? If you try to kill a dog, will it fight back?
Of course, yeah.
Okay. Why?
Well, I don't think dogs have like the complexity of understanding the world like we do.
So what? They value their lives and they don't believe in a god. Is this baffling to you?
Sure, I guess. Okay. That's true. I think some people do have a like evolutionary design to stay alive, survive. And there's some people that don't. Especially if you are like what I described, like a large portion of the world that lives like a very, very exploited life that's meaningless. I mean, I don't consider myself like a socialist-ish, but I do look at the world through some kind of Marxist lens where I do think that like some people live very unfulfilled.
So atheist is harmful because why?
Right. So like the reason why atheism can be harmful is that like without that like spiritual guidance, I think that like people's lives like it's miserable, I think.
So wait a minute here. What is spiritual guidance?
Hold on, let me try to think what I'm trying to say. I don't think atheism can be harmful. I think that is wrong. I think again I want to go back to that last time, which was I guess religion can be useful because I think my thesis is going to be religion can be useful in times of helping people do those things, and I don't think that,
do what things
like help people, be an opium for people is like.
Why is that a good thing? Why wouldn't it be a better thing for people to realize they're being exploited and to work to change it instead of just being complacent? Okay, so appeasing people who are in a situation that's intolerable seems to me like a bad solution, not a good solution.
I think those aren't mutually exclusive, right?
Well, sure it is. If you're the idea of it being the opiate of the masses is that it keeps these people suppressed, right, and depressed to a point that they just go on and they don't worry about it and they don't do anything about it. They're not activating. They're accepting of it. And I'm saying that I think that's probably not a good reaction to being exploited and abused.
Yeah, because they don't act to change it.
I agree with that. I mean, I do think that. I do agree with that.
Now, I will say, if this helps you out some, let me give you some help. I do think that religion takes advantage of certain things that are helpful to people, right? Like it's a good social network tool. Okay, so there are things that religion does really well. And I agree that in those ways it can be helpful. There are a lot of people with families who appreciate the fact that they can go to a church and do certain service-oriented things and bring their kids and have cookies and sing songs and all of that. And I think that there are, especially the more liberal churches and the more tolerant churches are great, areas where people can find this sort of non-oppressive religious response where they can then go and still have a happy time with their family. There are some organizations like the Unitarian Universalists. Did I say that right?
Yeah.
And they have that same model, and it's more of a civic thing where they're open to people that believe and don't believe and whatever, and they use that same kind of model because it actually is a good model, and it does actually serve to, bring people together and to create society and community with people. So I don't think that, religion does nothing well. In fact, I think it does bring people together in a real obvious, an indisputable way. The question is, what do they do with the people once they have that? And some groups do better things and some groups do not better things.
Well, but another question is the religion necessary for any of that? Is the religion necessary to help other people or to get together in community and have cookies or have pizza or have tamales, which is what we're doing here?
Interject a little bit.
Sure.
I remember reading what a lot of your fans think, and I think a lot of your fans are ardent fans of like capitalism, and like I don't think they see a problem with it. I think they do see that like socialism has killed like 1 billion people or whatnot. And I think to those people, I think it's hard to. I have like, I worded it. The way I wanted to say it was, is that like.
Trying to get this wig done.
I think without, so the way I always saw it was that religion. Never mind. I think I've come to the conclusion. I think religion can do some good things. Religion can do some bad things. Yeah, I mean, like, the point is, I'm not here to like, prove a point and like, we're not scoring points. Like, I wanted to have a dialectic, wanted to come to the truth, right? Because I think about these things, and talking to an atheist would help me arrive to what I believe is true, right?
Well, I mean, I'm okay talking with you. I've had an okay time chatting.
I did want to respond to because you asked me explicitly if I'm
I'm trying to figure out my thoughts. Is like I do see that you guys point right. I don't want to believe that like, oh, I'm right.
Okay. So, John had a question for you or something.
Well, I wanted to respond because you asked me if I was a fan of capitalism, which I think is a kind of a strange question. But, I think you will find atheists to be all across the political spectrum. It really doesn't have anything to do with whether you believe in a God or not. Personally, I think capitalism does some things very well, and it does some things not so well. And in this country, we're kind of indoctrinated towards capitalism as being the best thing. And we're not really truly capitalist, I guess. We have elements of all kinds of things with the way our political system works. So am I a fan? I don't, that's to me is a strange question. I think it is what it is.
Okay. Yeah, sure. When I say fan, my question is, do you think it does more harm than good? Do you like, anyways, I guess it's a very nebulous question. I agree with that. I think I agree with you guys. I think you guys have changed my mind. I come here to have...
No, it's totally cool. I appreciate the fact that you use the show as a way to kind of think your way through stuff and get feedback. Right. And I think it's totally fair for you to, at any point, say, you know what, I need to go and think about that some more. I think that's totally fine. And if that's the end of the conversation and it's just like, hey, you've given me stuff to think about, I'll go think about it. Maybe I'll call back later, maybe not. I think that's totally okay. All right?
Yeah, for sure.
All right. Well, thanks. Is that...
When I have ideas about certain stuff, I'll call you back, right?
All right. Well, thanks very much, Alec.
That's good. Thank you.
Woodbridge, Virginia, who wants to talk about the hiddenness of God, and you're on with Tracy and John.
Hey, Salvador.
Hi, John. Hi, Tracy.
Hello.
Thanks so much for taking my call. I'm calling from an old-fashioned landline.
Wow.
I hope my audio is coming through.
Sounds great.
Sounds better than many calls.
I really enjoyed today's show, and the topic I wanted to talk about is the hiddenness of God and dealing with it. Okay. I'm a Christian creationist, writer, and researcher, but I'm a big fan of Matt Dillahunty and the other hosts and callers of the show because I could relate to a lot of the ordeals former Christians go through on the way out of the faith. Some years back, I nearly left the faith for good before I came back. Up until that point, and maybe on and off for years after, I've been subject to a lot of berating for asking reasonable questions or expressing doubts about the Bible. So that's definitely left a totally bad taste in my mouth. So a couple Bible verses. John 9:25, whether Jesus is a sinner or not, I don't know. One thing I do know, I was blind, but now I see. And Proverbs 25:2, it is the glory of God to conceal a matter. It is the glory of kings to search out a matter. I know people claiming they've witnessed miracles, and I have no reason to doubt their sincerity. It may have been a coincidence, but it would bother my conscience to insist it was just a coincidence, because that may be the one miracle that God gave them in this life. And then after that, God remains mostly hidden in human affairs and in their life. I have one specific account that has haunted me through the years. It's astronaut Charles Duke. He became a Christian after he returned from walking on the moon, and he relates how he prayed for a blind girl, and within a few minutes her sight was restored. So, notwithstanding your very good objections about the absence of evidence for God, it seems reasonable to me that this girl would put her faith and trust in Jesus from that point on. And even if I were not a Christian, I don't know that I'd be too quick to try to take that away from her, because that could have been the work of God. I can imagine her saying, one thing I do know, I was blind, but now I see. So,
and that would be pretty much all you could say about it. That would be the only honest comment to make. Like the guy says, I don't know who it was. I don't know what his story was. I think earlier in the chapter he says that he thinks Jesus is a prophet. But the fact is, the only thing that a person like that could say is, I couldn't see before, I can see now, I don't know why. That would be the only honest statement.
That would be the
honest.
Yes, without any inferences.
Right.
So, I mean, I'm a former scientist in the defense industry, and I take a lot of comfort in repeatable experiments. I believe things that you can repeat, and I really don't hold it against anyone for not believing because of the hiddenness of God. So my question is, would one miracle, like what happened to that girl or happened to that blind beggar in the New Testament, would that do it for you if it happened to you, or would you prefer constant visit?
Not unless there was some way to actually identify a cause.
Yeah.
I mean, what you're basically saying is something happened, I can't explain it, and I'm going to just attribute it to X, even though I have no way to know if X exists or was involved. And I noticed that when you talked about miracles, you said it's hard to know whether they're a miracle or a coincidence. And so what I'm noticing here is that basically your definition of miracle then would include things that can naturally occur, right? Because you're basically saying you can't tell if it's a miracle or not. And so you just go with, okay, if they're saying that they feel like it was a miracle, then it's a miracle. But some of these things could just be coincidence. And so you're basically defining miracle as like things that can happen.
I'm defining miracles as things that would be exceptional.
Okay, so
I agree with your point that you can't, it's not a formal inference to say that God did it or whatever, but I mean, if I were that little girl that in that account by astronaut Duke, if I were blind and someone prayed for me in the name of Jesus, I think I probably want to follow Jesus the rest of my life.
I would probably wonder why this person doesn't go to a hospital and just start healing everybody, because I would think that whether or not there's a God is irrelevant. This person has healing power. And so the person should be going and healing tons of people. Like go to the children's ward and heal all the kids of cancer. That would be my first thought.
Why wouldn't they?
Yeah. If you can heal blindness, go heal all the blind people that want to be healed.
Yeah. I think that's everything you're saying there is reasonable. I guess I've just come to the point where I believe that just like that proverb, it's the glory of God to conceal a matter. I think it'll just the idea behind the theology behind that is that in the final day, when it's revealed, it's like a surprise.
It would be a surprise to everybody who's reasonable, because if you're basically saying that God is hiding, right, that you have a divine being that is hiding itself in everyday occurrences or in, like exceptional coincidences or whatever, that basically when you see this God, you can't differentiate it from just crap that happens. Then I would say that at the end of it, anybody who says, I knew there was a God, doesn't understand how to reason. Because if God is hiding and he's not hiding successfully, then it's not much of a hide. And if he is hiding successfully, and if he is indiscernible from things that can happen, then why would anybody assume reasonably that this is the work of a God?
Well, those are really good questions, and I think you probably stumped me on that. It's really good food for thought, and I like having my ideas challenged. So.
Well, that's fair. I mean, I totally, and I want people to know that I'm cool with that. If I think a lot of times callers are scared to call in because they're like, well, what if you say something and I don't know how to answer it? And it's like, if you don't know how to answer it, then you say exactly what you just said. I hadn't thought of it that way. Maybe I'll go think about that. And that's totally fair. I don't ever want people to call up and be afraid and think that they have to be able to respond to everything, because then we get really ridiculous calls where people are just desperately trying to defend a thing instead of just saying, this is something I haven't thought of, and I probably need to take a step back and maybe call again later, after I've thought about that. So I just want to kind of pull out what you just said as a great example of how to respond when you're hit with something that you do need to go and think about some more. You don't have to react to it, and sometimes reacting to it makes people say really ridiculous things. And the best thing you can say is, I'm not sure how to respond to that. Let me go and think about it. And that's completely fair. And I want people to always feel comfortable saying that when they call the show.
Yeah, I appreciate you saying that, because, even though I'm a professing Christian, I really want people to not try to make stupid responses. Their challenge.
And it's just because they get nervous, I think, and it's like they don't have to.
Well, and a lot of times people don't want to admit that there's something that they don't know. They think that maybe they don't have enough faith if they're willing to admit that.
Or they feel like they might feel themselves pressing themselves to say, like, I'm wrong, and they don't want to be wrong. And it's like, you don't even have to say you're wrong. You can literally, if it means, sorry, I didn't mean to hit my mic, but if it means, if it's that intimidating, you don't have to say you're wrong. You can just say, I need to go and consider that. That's totally fair.
So if I could kind of restate understand what your response was, is you said that if someone had that healing power, it'd be more convincing to you if they went to hospitals and started healing.
Well, it would convince me that they could heal, right? It wouldn't convince me why, right? I mean, they may not even know why. Like, the person who's praying to God for the power to heal, they may have an inherent power to heal that we don't understand, and they think God is doing it because they are in that
Christian
framework, right? And they think the power is coming from God, but maybe they just have some weird inherent healing capacity. I mean, we don't know what would be causing it, but I would be able to say this person went to a children's ward and started healing all the children at the hospital, and that's amazing. And we don't know how they're doing it, and we need to investigate that. But that's really, at least we'd be able to see that they have a capacity to heal.
Well, I mean, I do respect that. If I could say just for myself, I'd be kind of afraid not to. I mean, if someone healed me in the name of Jesus, and again, I'm referring to the story of the little girl. I mean, I personally think, like I said, I would not think to try to talk her out of, Jesus being the source of her healing. I mean, that's between her.
Well, I wouldn't. It's not like I'm going to go and hunt her down. I mean, if she wanted to discuss it, I would be happy to discuss it with her. But I'm just saying, if to the question of what if this happened to me, if something like that happened to me, if some guy prayed and put hands on me and healed me, I would be like, this guy needs to come with me down to the cancer center, and we need to start healing everybody like this. Like, we just need to go and do this, because I really wouldn't care where he thinks he gets his power. I would only care that he has the ability to do this.
Well, I appreciate your time, and thank you so much for taking my call.
Thank you.
Give me a lot to think about.
Well, I appreciate your points. Thanks very much, Salvador.
Yeah, it was good, bro.
Do you have anything else?
I think that's it.
All right, so let's go ahead and skip over to callers, and we have got Alex in California, who says belief in God is rational, and rationality and belief in God can coexist. You're on with Tracy and Jen.
Chilling. I know that's right.
Hey, Tracy and Jen. Can
Hello.
you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Yep.
How are you guys?
Good, thank you. Hope you're well as well. What's on your mind today?
Yeah, so first of all, I just want to set up the discussion. I really like you guys' show, and I'm against dogma and preaching and all this kind of stuff. And a little bit about me is I'm a former Christian, and now I'm a theist, so I did renege from Christianity, and so I kind of wanted to call because I know Tracy from hearing your past podcasts, I guess. You were in a similar situation to me where you kind of stopped being a Christian and became kind of a theist and was looking around for faith.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. So that's kind of where I am in my life right now.
Okay.
And so I really liked you guys' show. I was watching it, and then I heard, and it wasn't you guys, so I'm going to posit the question to you about what I heard, but I heard on the Atheist Experience, I think it was Matt, but I'm not sure, but I heard that essentially there was this argument against personal religion, and the argument was that personal religion is not a good thing because it was compared to being a poison in small quantities, because the idea, I think, was that religion goes against rationality, and so even if you have a personal religion and you're not harming anyone, because you're like personally practicing this irrational, you personally have this irrational practice, that it may bleed into other aspects of your life and then purport more irrationality that will spread to other people, and then everyone will be irrational and horrible things will happen.
I think I would say that, like, for me, there's two prongs of the religious belief where it's somebody that, like you're saying, that doesn't preach, right? Like, I'm not going out and preaching. I'm not trying to convert anybody. I just have my beliefs, and that's that. For me, there's two things. Number one is it buffers, and this is not necessarily the person's responsibility, but I just think it's an observation that it buffers more extreme views. But again, I can't say that they are necessarily responsible for someone else taking it to a greater extreme. I'm not saying that. What I am saying is that a person who is extreme looks at the person who believes and thinks, well, they understand that I'm fundamentally correct, and they just don't understand that they need to be more extreme yet. Right, so that's kind of how they view it. Now, that, whether or not I'm going to, I'm not saying again that would be the person who has the less extreme view is necessarily, responsible for somebody being more extreme. But I will say that the person who is extreme takes comfort in knowing that other people, kind of, quote, agree with them, and they just are kind of separated only by what God expects from them. And the other concern that I have is kind of what you mentioned, right? It's not like there's a guarantee that if I have I'm pretty sure that if we could do like a viral scan to detect all the irrational beliefs in my head, I'm pretty sure things would come up. And so I probably am carrying on with some things that could be corrected, should be corrected, that I'm clearly not aware of. Because I think if I was aware that it was irrational, and sometimes we believe irrational things and have irrational fears, for example, and even though we're aware they're irrational, we still have them. So even knowing that it's irrational isn't always a guarantee that you're going to somehow just magically get over it. So part of reality is that I think we're all kind of walking around with some irrational thoughts. And so the question becomes, do we think that it's a good goal to reduce that irrationality in ourselves when we can, right? Like that the world would be somewhat better if we did care whether or not what we believe is true, and we did take steps to confirm that what we believe is true, and that it would impact, how we live our lives and what we think about things and how it integrates with other beliefs. I mean, do you think that's fair?
Yeah, definitely. I think reducing irrationality is a very good idea. But I guess maybe another way of phrasing, or maybe a kind of what I'm getting at in my question is, do you necessarily think that, in general, a belief in some sort of God, I'll say God, some sort of God is necessarily irrational and is always going to be conducive to that kind of irrational part of you that we all have? And I totally agree that everyone has an irrational part of them that you can't necessarily rationalize or change with rationality.
Well, and some things some things don't even lend themselves to rationality, right? Like visceral reactions, for example, aren't like I taste something and I hate it. That's not something that is like, it could be really good for me. It's not going to make me like it, right? Right. There's some things that visceral reaction has nothing to do with rationality and everything to do with this is just how I react to that thing. And you can work on adjusting things like that, because there's certain things that maybe freak you out and then later in life you like them, or things other people kissing gives cooties and I'm not kissing anyone, and then later kissing becomes a really good idea, right? So I mean, we all have the changes like that, but I'm sorry, I'm losing my train of thought. I got off on that joke.
Do you mind if I bring us back to
Go for it. Yeah, bring me back.
So I guess. Cool. Yeah. So I guess my question was that would you lump a belief in God with these kinds of necessarily irrational things like phobia?
Okay, that was the question. Okay. I do think that there's all the gods that I've had put to me do tend to fall into the irrational category. Then you have something like pantheism where they're relabeling the universe, and that is just one where I sort of am like, it's a useless, unnecessary relabeling and repackaging of something that is the same thing. So it's like a kind of useless belief. I don't know that I would call it irrational. I would say that it's just simply strange to me and unnecessary. But as far as like any kind of deistic or theistic gods that I've heard put forward, I have not seen like a really good reason to believe them.
Yeah.
That makes sense. So do you mind if I try to propose one definition to you and then try to reduce that definition to maybe something more intuitive, and then you can maybe tell me your thoughts on it and we can go from there?
Yeah, why not? Go for it.
Cool. So, and I have this written down, so I'm kind of cheating here. But
No, it's good to, let me just say, I'm okay with people writing their thoughts down. Sometimes that's a good thing.
Yeah, in general, it's better than rambling on, trying to remember what you wanted to say.
So, yeah, great. So let me go ahead and say it. So my definition of God that I came up with is a personal interpretation and personification or personifications of our experience of the material world, combined with the ideal example of our best attempt at an objective morality. I know it's a mouthful.
No, I'm trying to just process. No, I think what you're saying when you talk about a personification of the experience, right? It's kind of like you tell me if I'm misinterpreting it. I think immediately of like the Greek gods and how Zeus is a personification of lightning, right?
Yeah, and also Christ. I can also say Christ, but you're absolutely right that I actually had that down as one of my examples of Zeus.
I think I'm following you. And now, as far as the objective morality, that gets hairier. You get into the concepts of which aspects of morality can reasonably be considered objective or reasonably labeled subjective. Obviously, there's like a couple of things in play.
Do you mind if I maybe give an example?
Yeah, go for it. That might help.
So with Zeus, for example, we can just take that.
Sure.
So he was the personification of lightning, right? So I think that when the Greeks imagined this personification of lightning, because of course they didn't understand lightning in its fullest, they kind of had him act out take the actions of someone who was the embodiment of this natural disaster force, right? And it's the same with Christ, I believe. Like at that time, the ideal of mercy was such and such ideal, and it was embodied in Christ. And it's the same with Guanyin in Eastern Buddhism, the personification of mercy. You get all of these legends and fables about Guanyin doing all these crazy things, but they're all essentially super merciful things that are supposed to take this ideal to its extreme.
I'm going to accept that for the sake of continuing the discussion. I think I would take issue with saying, because I think that there are, so for example, just to give you one quick example of why I would take issue, is that the story of the adulterous woman where Jesus lets a woman off the hook for what should be the death penalty under the law of God, right?
Yeah.
That story was added later, and some of the thinking about why it was added later was to soften the image of Jesus and make Jesus less hard-ass. So,
yeah,
I mean, it's not like this Jesus was invented as a personification of mercy. He had to actually be made more merciful. And
yeah, I agree with that.
And so, but when we're talking about this, a personification of something is okay. Like, for example, wisdom is personified in the Bible, right? Wisdom has a song, I guess. I think it's in Proverbs where wisdom speaks, right? And, but I would be concerned if someone took these artistic personifications and believed that they were real entities that were dictating morality to us. That would concern me.
to an argument from authority, essentially.
Well, or from whatever they're doing, right? Because it's like the moment they start saying that this thing that they believe is there, that seems to me to be a personification of something else, they're saying is, instead of being a useful tool to help us envision a thing, is now becoming a thing that governs us instead of the people that have invented it. That gets a little scary. It's almost like the thing is taking on a life of its own now and has the potential to be distorted into something dangerous.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think I would agree with that. And I think that it's been proven or like shown just from history that ideas of God can make people do very dangerous and negative things. Yeah. But I think that in and of itself, if you take the idea of God as what I've mentioned as just a personification of an interpretation and of the morality of the time or what you believe in, then it does have this ability to evolve with your own understanding of morality and your own interpretation.
Sure, and it does. I mean,
it can also be I
don't disagree. So from an anthropological perspective, part of the function of religion is that it helps us carry our cultural paradigms with us, right? So it embodies the story of us in a way that allows us to take those stories and remember them, almost like making the stars into your gods and heroes, so that you can say, well, there's Achilles and there's Taurus, and because it helps you map the stars. And so for this, the religion helps us kind of map who we are. It takes the things. It's like our cultural mythology. And I'm not against it in that level. Those stories are kind of, sitting around the campfire, drinking your beers and telling your stories about our, like our little moral tales and our Aesop's fables and whatever it is that sort of reflects what our culture values. I'm okay with that. And like you say, there's this sort of religion creates life, life creates religion, where they're influencing each other, and then it sort of evolves forward in a certain way. And like I say, I'm actually not opposed to an artistic interpretation of social mores. What scares me is when they become authoritative and rigid and dictatorial.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I definitely agree with you. I definitely agree with you there. So I think we're on the same page there. So maybe I'll segue a little further down my little document here. Since we're on the same page here, and I'll just go to maybe one of the reasons why, because you may ask, like, and you're not asking this, but if I were on your side, I'd probably ask this of myself, so I'll just ask it anyways. You may ask, well, why, like, if you just treat these things as stories, can't you have stories of morality from an atheistic perspective as well?
Well, we do have them.
Yeah, we have those.
Yeah. There are little secular, like Aesop's fables are secular, and they're all little morality tales.
I think the question, if I understand where you're going with this, is, the question I would have is, what does kind of bootstrapping a deity on top of this do for you?
Yeah. That's a great question.
That's a really good. That's a good core question.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think my answer to that is prayer. And so maybe let me talk about that. So if we consider this definition of God, and we consider what can this definition of God actually do, one of my claims would be that this God that I've defined, that's made by man, and man is reinforced by this God in turn, this God can actually change your attitudes. This is my claim. And one of the big reasons I say that is because of prayer. So if you associate a deity to a set of moral values and to an interpretation of the world, then through prayer you can actually reinforce your secular ideals and your morality. It's like having a role model when you were a child.
Well, okay. I was just thinking of that, right? Like there are certain books, for example, that have really resonated with me. Books that I've read that resonate, that I think about in certain times. In fact, I make connections all the time with different things that people are just like, wow, that's a weird connection to make. I guess my thing is,
I don't have a problem with anything that you're describing. And I even don't have a problem saying that it could be a useful tool. The problem is when people forget that it is a tool for people. And then they start making that the tool that they're using, like you say, not just personifying it for effect, but personifying it because they actually believe that there is a person in there that is dictating these things, because that is a whole other level.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I think that it's definitely, I'm as against theism in that regard as you guys are. But I do think that...
Well, that's pretty much the only theism I think we would be opposed to. I think a theism where somebody says, I just visualize God as like the good stuff in the world, and it's a personification of that I use as a tool, and I don't think that it's like a real entity with a personality that tells me what to do. I think if everybody saw God that way, we wouldn't have this show. Because I think we would look at them and say, you're an atheist.
Okay, that's great. I mean, if we have no, that's great.
Okay. I hope that helps clarify. I mean, I hope that offers some clarification of the positions that you had questions about.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, well, cool.
Yeah, I guess that's the end of the call. Yeah.
I love it.
Through and not loads of time. So we have Taylor in California. Thank you for waiting. You're on with Matt and Jim Hilton, or Matt Dillahunty and Jim Hilton.
Hey, Matt. Hey, thank you guys for having me on. Yeah, I know who you're talking about. That's Steve McCrae from the Non Sequitur Show. He has a really good show.
No, Steve and I are not going to have a conversation around this for various reasons. But
oh yeah, I like his show. His show's really cool. It's got flat earthers, and I enjoy watching it. Well, I'm a Bible-believing Christian, and I'm faith-based, and I was listening to what you were saying, and I agree with you that faith isn't always a source of truth.
Okay.
You need inclinations, right? In the Bible it says persuasion. We are persuaded. We know.
Persuasion is a technique. I'm a magician, and I can persuade people of all kinds of things. Con artists are very persuasive. What we need is evidence. Not persuasion. It is the evidence that does the persuasion.
Yes.
Okay.
And the God of the Bible claims in the book of Romans, all right?
Well, hang on.
Because we have known.
Hang on.
Go ahead.
So there's a problem with that phrasing. The God of the Bible claims in the book of Romans is an assertion that you have a book and that this God is saying it. Instead, it would be better to say the book of Romans says...
Is your potato? You can have it.
And are you going to Romans 1:9 or?
No, I'm going to Romans 1:19.
1:19. Sorry, that's the evidence of all things. But yeah, go ahead.
No, it's not the evidence, but it's the claim that he has evidence for him.
Sure.
Because we have known God manifest in them, the believers, and God showed it unto them. For the invisible things from creation of the world are clearly seen, being understood by the things that are made, even the eternal power of the Godhead. So he's saying that we can witness him in creation.
Yes. And do you understand that this is a fallacious assertion because it's circular? The observation of nature leads to a couple of possibilities. One, that nature was created, and two, that nature evolved, that it wasn't created or did not have an intelligent creator. And when Romans states that for the invisible things of his nature are evident in nature, that is an assertion that basically that argument is look at the trees. You look at a tree and you know there's a God, except that is a fallacious argument.
Yeah, no, I'm not making that argument at all. I'm saying that.
But that's what Romans is making. You're making what?
Well, I'm saying, right, we look at the God of the whole Bible, meaning that if he has to be the way he describes, he's a borderline personality, if you will. He's somebody that loves you, and then 2 minutes later, he hates you.
Yes.
He gives you the keys to the car, and you get in the car, and he says, if you go to a party, right, if you don't just go straight to work and come back, I'm going to ground you. And then you get in the car, there's a full tank of gas.
That's in the Bible.
And he's like, oh, yeah, and I'm going to be gone for a couple days. See, so we have a God that will give you life.
It's curious to me.
Fragile, you could die at any moment.
It's curious to me that you want to take it on the whole character of God as described in the Bible, and then you acknowledge that the God of the Bible is described with massively different and conflicting character traits.
how that would be a borderline personality.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm fine with that. I believe.
Okay, so your God is occasionally a dick, and you're okay with it.
Why not?
Okay.
If I have no choice in the matter.
Here's the more important question: dick or not, how do you know your God's real?
I can see this in manifest reality. Like if I acted like God, right?
No, I would know my dad. I would know my dad is real when he manifests in reality by handing me the car keys. If you're going to use an analogy or a metaphoric analysis like that, you need to have some demonstration of how you know that there is a God handing you the metaphorical car keys.
All right. My God says he's invisible.
How do you know your God says no? When hang on, Taylor, when and where did God say he's invisible?
God, all right, you're right. We'll say the Bible.
Why should I care what the Bible says?
Because that's my God, the God I believe in.
How is that not a circular argument?
I don't get your point.
Sure.
I believe in the God of the Bible. So
you believe in the God. You believe in the God. Taylor, I'm trying to make this as easy as possible. The Bible says something, and you believe it because you believe that it's God saying it. Right?
I believe that the Bible equates reality. When we read the Bible,
I don't know what the hell that means or how it's relevant to this question. So let me try again. You believe the Bible, correct?
Yes, I do.
Every bit of it?
Every single word.
And so if God commands something in the Bible, it's morally correct?
Absolutely not.
Wait.
Absolutely not.
So God can command things in the Bible that are immoral?
Absolutely. It says that Isaiah 45:7, he creates good and evil.
That's not what that passage means.
Yes, I bring the light, I bring the dark, I create, do the good.
I know what the passage says, and I know atheists use that all the time to say that God is the creator of good and evil. But if you actually study theology on every major Christian and Jewish understanding of that, that is not what that passage means. But okay, so yeah, I know lots of things you don't. But here's the thing: you have and I'm sure that you know lots of things that I don't too. Let's focus on what's relevant. So you have a particularly esoteric view of that verse, and so you have a God that is some bipolar dick who is good and evil. Cool. All I'm concerned about is how would we go about having a reasonable demonstration that this God is real? And your answer was that you believe the Bible, and when I asked why should I care what the Bible has to say, your thing is because it's from God. And then you would need to demonstrate why it's from God, and you can't use the Bible as confirmation of that, or it becomes a circular argument, which is fallacious.
I'm not stating as fact that the Bible is the Word of God. I'm saying I'm persuaded to believe the Bible is the Word of God.
Okay.
Meaning, if you could prove, if this could be proven to me, that the Bible is not the Word of God, then I would have no God.
Well, you have set up, Taylor, you have set up the most unfalsifiable proposition of all time for your view of Christianity. Because the type of things that we would use to show that the Bible was perhaps not the Word of God would be to show that something the Bible said is inconsistent with the character that we would expect from God. But your God can be anything: good, evil, nice, dick, whatever. And so there's no way to show that beyond showing a technical failure, which I guess your God could be technically wrong about stuff too, right?
Yeah, no, he can't lie.
He cannot lie?
God can't do. He cannot lie. He could not decide for you whether or not, he could not decide whether Adam was going to take the apple. He did not know whether Adam was going to take the apple.
So your God doesn't know the future? So how could there possibly be prophecy in the Bible?
Well, prophecy, he's equating. He knows the conclusion of what will be and what will be.
You can't. So he didn't know that Adam was going to eat the apple, but he knew that mankind was going to be sinful and fallen and that he would need to send Jesus? That's bizarrely absurd.
He didn't know that. That dispensed over time, as the Bible shows. There's all kinds of things God didn't know.
Okay, you got a weak-ass God, dude. Now, how do you prove he's real?
Well, that's what I'm saying. If we had an old good God, that would falsify the Bible. If we had an old bad God, that would falsify the Bible. We got a God that does both good and evil. There's only one, so he's responsible for everything, life and everything.
So your God is
killed everybody.
But if your God is on par with a coin toss, then how do you distinguish randomness to say that there's a God involved?
Randomness, what do you mean?
Well, your God can do whatever he wants. So let's say something good happens, people can credit God. Something bad happens, people could credit God, right?
Yes.
How do we tell when God has actually been involved in something or not, if it can go either way?
Oh, no, he's in order for him to be, he's involved in everything.
Okay, so he was involved in Adam eating the apple, and yet he didn't know that was going to happen?
Yep.
So he's involved in decisions that he doesn't know about.
No, he's not involved in decisions he doesn't know about. He gives you, you're allowed the opportunity. He doesn't know you. He created you personally in the image, right? So that means you have the same interest of good and evil.
Since we're short on time and because I have a guest, I'm just going to put a pin in this. And you have propositioned a confused, non-standard, self-contradictory God, and you're okay with it, which is how you can't show that there's a contradiction. So you're right. There's no way for me to disprove your God. When you figure out how you could possibly prove your God, give us a call back. I don't know how you can. I got none. My God could land on heads or tails, but every time that coin lands, no matter what it is, I know that God was involved in that. Woo-woo. Good job. I don't know. We'll go on. We've got Otangelo in Brazil. Thank you for waiting.
All the way from Brazil.
It's.
All right, y'all. Got my hair twisted. I'm gonna let it sit like this for a minute before I take these knots out. And thanks for chilling with me while I did my hair. I'll probably be in the studio later on. So if I don't be in the studio tonight, I'll definitely be in there first thing in the morning. Alright. Hope you guys get on. Peace.